Says, and we're live. All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Ed.
You're probably wondering why I asked you all here today. No, you're probably not. So hi to everybody on the Hangout. You know the deal. Ask questions in Slack if you got them. So yeah, we're just talking about, what are we going to talk about? So one of the things that's been rolling around my brain a little bit is, as Mac admins, we are increasingly not just Mac admins. And I think for a very long time, of course, in the tech industry, the more you know, the broader your skill set, the better off you are, of course. But Apple has gotten out of the infrastructure game a long time ago. OS servers, OSN servers kind of dying off. Like, even if you did manage to run it on a RAID of minis or something, just the functionality is kind of going away. So are we Mac admins anymore? Or is there a future for someone who's called a Mac admin? Or are we sort of transitioning into just the broader world of being a sysadmin and having to know things about other infrastructure? You know, a lot of times people in the Mac admin world, well, they really just set up the infrastructure for Macs and aren't really worried about managing Macs per se, or that's at least not the only thing you get to get away with.
But I'd probably say that I don't think we've ever been just Mac admins. There's some. We contain multitudes, so sure.
Yes.
But I think generally speaking, I even if you maybe focused what you thought was like Mac stuff, it was still other things.
Sure. I guess maybe I'm thinking of a time way past where, you know, someone was hired and they're a Mac admin, and even if they're writing scripts or doing some other things, like their whole job was kind of focused around the Mac.
Right.
You never had to touch any other system. Nowadays, though, you probably need to know some Linux. You know, whether that's Google Compute Engine or AWS, or hosting things in the cloud, or running a Linux server even on-prem, or Windows. Right. That's how like Joel and Josh are kind of making their forward career now, is around a product for the Mac that ties into Active Directory. And that's been an interesting transition too, I guess. We have 3 former Apple people, Joel and Josh, Joel Rennick, and separately Tim Perfit, who all came out of Apple, and now they're developers, but they're making products for the Mac admin market to kind of help you integrate with all these other systems. So I don't know. What does this portend for the future of Mac admins? I mean, I agree with you, but I think there's a pretty fine point on it now that.
Yeah, I definitely think for the smaller Mac admin. Back when I was purely a Mac admin, as you describe it, we used Mac minis and all the server app things like NetBoot and DNS and DHCP, all from the Mac in the Mac, and that's called.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like,
that half.
You could pretty much live your life as a Mac admin with all of the, you know, Mac infrastructure and never touch any other system. So, I don't know, like we're saying though, like especially with the server product going away, like that puts even a finer point on it. That like you're not going to get away with that for forever.
Yeah, I think perhaps haven't ever really been in that space.
Yeah,
like even 25 years ago, I was still, you know, sure I was managing Macs, but I was, you know, plopping NetBSD on the old Quadras to run as mail servers. Like that, so.
Totally agreed. I worked for a long time for a small company that had, quote, no money, and so that meant I was taking, you know, old Pentiums or something and loading Linux on them and turning them into mail servers or DNS servers or whatever.
setting up. I was doing Apple Talk over Frame Relay, ridiculous things like that.
I've done some Frame Relay. So
Apple Talk over Token Ring. I remember that. That was good times.
Yeah, but I mean that's cables put together. Like this is like transcontinental stuff.
That's
just high end Apple Talk.
The thing about Frame Relay that's kind of funny is they're all virtual circuits, so you're totally dependent on your carrier, and twice with 2 different Frame Relay networks, came in one morning. It's like, what's all this stuff I can see on the network? I can call up your carrier, like, oh, whoops, sorry, we patched you into someone else's network. Yeah. Ooh, whoops, that's really not good. So yeah, I mean, I think we've gone through a number of transitions. Just like, even if you were strictly a MacAdmin, you always brought more value if you could do some scripting or programming, or like just more than like, hey, I'm going to go set up user accounts for people.
Understand a little bit about DNS.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Absolutely.
Because it's always DNS.
Really is. So you always brought more value with those things, but now more than ever, I think, go learn some Windows, go learn some Linux, go learn some things. And again, we've never been at a better time to do that. Like, go spin up Google Compute Engine instance for like a few bucks a month if you really need a Linux box somewhere, don't have your own, or can't dedicate the hardware to it or whatever. Yeah, so what does that future look like? Any ideas? Just continue down that path, or?
I think it depends on what you want to get into. Like, I branched off into the coding side of things, away from MacAdmin to coding, but there's MacAdmin to sysadmin in general, or SRE work like Google does, large systems. I guess it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, I think, rolling back, like you were saying, 20, 25 years or possibly more, there were always different facets you could focus on in the computer world. But now it feels to me like you really almost have to choose because there are too many. Whereas, like, back in the day, like, you could be a good Mac person and database administrator, and, like, you could know enough.
These Unix machines, and then also this Cisco switch and this routing.
Yeah, you could be a networking person.
And I've patched my own cable, and then like now you're like, no.
Yeah, you could
sort of stuff moving around, right?
You could be sort of involved in all of it, and be pretty good at each of those things. Where now it's just like you're in over your head pretty quickly. So it's almost like pick one, maybe 2 of those things, and you can be pretty good at it.
I think it shows how much things have been commoditized, I guess, simplified in a lot of ways. Like a lot of the stuff I don't have to worry about anymore because it's been done, and the things you buy or set up are easy enough to get going in a lot of situations. And even on larger scales, like trying to manage it to Linux systems is a pain, but now you can just spin up, App Engine or Compute Engine or something, and it's easy.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with that. But some of it's easy because someone else is dealing with it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You get to focus on something, but you come into work, you come into your office, and you have nice Wi-Fi that's really reliable. That's because someone else is doing all the hard work of making sure the building was mapped out, and we have the right access points, and the density is correct, blah, 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 right? And they tie into a nice fast switch, and etc.
People like Tom Bridge walking around with their Wi-Fi switch. I can't believe they set up
I was just about to say, these questions don't really work well for us in what we do here, but someone like Tom Bridge or their own consulting company would probably be more in touch with these types of questions.
Well, but Tom Bridge's thing, like Clay was saying, their specialty is Wi-Fi and networking. So they do focus on the Mac space and do a lot of work with Macs and have a lot of domain knowledge there, but they get to kind of dig in deep to the Wi-Fi stuff, which is really cool. But yeah, you know.
Honestly, like I think it's just ever increasing complexity in all these things. And like before I came here, I was doing consulting, and I started with the idea like I can just do everything, but it was very quickly got to a point where there were lots of areas where I could do the first 80%, and then there was just 20% that I just not have the time or anything to learn. Like you need to rely on other people to come in and do those things for you.
Yeah.
Like there was a point, like I feel like 25 years ago, where I felt like I kind of understood the whole thing. Like I understood the OS stack and the networking stack, and I could do database management. You're saying, but like I do not feel that I could even get into my head all the things that even a small or medium-sized business needs to have.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think
just
even I mentioned that to you guys before, like years ago in classic Mac OS, I could list off the top of my head all of the actual files on my disk. Like they were like maybe 100. I could probably list them all to you with like 95% accuracy where they are and what I did. And then 5 to 10 years ago, the go-to interview question for MacAdmin was, tell me everything that happens in the startup process. I couldn't do that. I could not answer that question.
Yeah.
Like at this point, they've changed so much, and I'm like, I don't know, something happened with LaunchD sort of, and a bunch of other stuff. I don't even know.
Yeah. Very high level, I could.
Yeah, but so I'm thinking even the things that I used to have pretty good knowledge of, it's complicated, and I don't know that I haven't looked at the number of files and a vanilla OS install, but it's I don't know.
Can you look at how many files there are? Millions, just millions of files.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can't track them all, but yeah. Well,
so things get more complicated, but also in many ways, you don't have to worry about the complexity as much. Hopefully. Until you do, and then it's down into the rabbit hole you go.
Yeah. And sometimes that's just fun. Sometimes you're doing it for fun. Yeah. How does this thing work? And you just pull the thread.
I think instead of being like, sort of a broad, or I've got a specific knowledge of this chunk of thing, I have a time-bound, very deep, specific knowledge of this little bit of thing.
Yeah.
And then to fix this problem, and then like as it goes away, I'm like, I don't know.
Yes.
Right? So it's like I have like these spikes of like, let me dig into this. Okay, I solved this problem. And if you ask me in 6 months, how does that? I'm like, I'd have to look at my notes. Let me look at my Google history and see what I figured out.
That's a great observation, and what a phenomenon that is. I've done the same thing where you dig into something, and a few months later,
I know how this works, but
I had figured this out.
I wrote that code. I don't know how I figured it out. How did that work?
Huh. Okay, that's interesting. So maybe it's just the answer is just this is going to keep evolving, kind of along these same lines, and that, as usual, you give more value with sort of the broader your skill set. So that hasn't changed. Although, as you were saying, you can also choose to sort of specialize in sort of one thing. Obviously your domain knowledge as a developer is different than my set or Clay's or Ed's. Cool. Anyone on the Hangout have a thought on what it means to be a Mac admin these days? Victor, I see you smiling. You always chime in with something.
Me? I mean, I think today you should pay Fleetsmith to manage your Macs. We're not quite there, but I think we're getting there, and it's obviously not going to be a solution for Google, but I think it can be a solution for a company like the one I work for, and it's kind of I'm not managing Macs day to day anymore, and I was a year ago, still in actually 2 years ago now. And so my like rush to like set up Monkey and like manage everything, like the first 2 months, it was very hard not to do that. And now that I've kind of been busy with doing other stuff, like a lot of times this question comes up and I'm just like, I want other people to do it. I kind of like personally, I want to write the software that helps us build these systems that abstract away the day-to-day stuff. But I think in terms of doing the types of things that a lot of Mac admins are still doing, worrying about what software is, taking apart packages and like seeing how vendors built them and like working around those issues. I think that all needs to be abstracted away.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that, and it's funny that you say that as well. Like, you're not really a Mac admin anymore. Like, I'm not doing like strongly focused Mac admin work. I think a bunch of people have sort of like left that label a little bit. We're all still sort of involved in that, but to your point, that's kind of interesting. Like, there are these things that still need to get done, pulling packages apart or packaging things in the first place. And so who does that now? Are they Mac admins? I don't know.
It's very like,
I mean,
Mac admin, you really
track that away.
Like, to be a Mac admin today, you really need to know how LaunchD works, like how preferences work and where they don't work. And like if they don't work, what other system they're in. And there's a lot of like very specific domain knowledge, like to build a package correctly and everything, you need to know like all these things. And that knowledge doesn't scale out well. Like it's still required, but making sure that the 14,000 people that are signed up to the Mac admin community all like know and understand like every little component and keep track with it, like it's not a viable solution. So I think the solution there is to build tools. They're not necessarily, I mentioned Fleetsmith. They're not necessarily a vendor, but they have to be solutions that abstract away things from the community. And like auto package is a good example of something that we used to do daily and we don't do anymore because the tools solve the problem. It doesn't go far enough.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to abstract some of this away, but yeah, when a tool like the luggage or auto package, when one of those sort of runs into its boundaries, its limits, and you want to extend them, yeah, you're going to need to understand how to do that. So I don't know. I usually like thinking of this in terms of advice for a newcomer into this field, but I don't.
Good luck.
Yeah, well, I don't know what that advice would be if someone said like, yeah, I want to work with Macs all the time and be a Mac admin or iOS. I don't know.
Well, I think it's also a balancing question, which I think what you're getting to,
yeah,
which is like, I do feel like it's much harder to focus entirely on the Mac as an IT professional because Apple has slowly cut away everything they've been doing to support that, right? In terms of OS and server and ARD and all these other tools. And you really have to know something else. Like you have to be able to do something else. But the other question is, I also feel like the market's a lot better than it used to be. Like there was a period of my career when there were no jobs for Mac admins because nobody had Macs. No one who was willing to spend money on managing had Macs.
Yeah. Well, I solved that by hanging around recording studios who still like toughed through those times and were like, well, Mac is where it's at for audio and video and all that stuff. But yes, I agree that
publishing.
But it is kind of weird. Like I think like the people in this room and on the Hangout, like we might be in a little bit of a bubble because like our organizations where we are, it's like Mac all the time, all the Macs.
Yeah.
But like when you talk to other companies, you really do see that the statistics are correct. Like Windows is still like this dominant force in business. Most businesses are still running on Windows, and to that point, you can be a Windows admin. Where you're still doing that whole stack where you're doing Active Directory and Windows servers and PowerShell and, you know, dealing with your clients. And
I guess I think those.
I didn't say that was exciting work.
No,
I just said you could do it.
I was actually going to say I just think it's not a good business because it's really crowded. Like if someone comes to me and say, look, I have a choice between learning to be a Mac administrator and learning to be a Windows administrator, I would never recommend the Windows administrator. Like there's like a really crowded field. There's a million people who want to do that.
Yeah.
And you're better off picking something that's a little more specialized if you want. And I think even at this point, that may be like use the Mac.
Yeah, and I think on the Mac side, if you do it right, then you're also learning a lot of Linux administration.
Yeah.
Sort of, which is helpful.
And also Windows sucks.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gotten a lot better.
Okay. So
I know.
It's just a reaction engine.
Yeah. Some of it's just muscle memory. Like I sit down at a Windows machine, I'm like, I want to do this thing. I know where that would be on a Mac. I'm lost. Like it's just my own personal I'm lost. Okay, cool. Hey, Google I/Os this week.
Keynote was
Keynote was today. Anything interesting? Anybody watching?
I did.
they had Google Assistant, made a phone call, talk to a person.
Yeah, called Google Duplex. Someone said they're still in testing or whatever, but it was like, make an appointment to get my hair cut on Tuesday, and then Google called the assistant called I'm gonna make an appointment for a client at Wednesday at 10, and they're like, oh, we don't have any availability, and I said, well, we only have 1:15, and it's just like, well, can you have anything between 10 and noon? And said, oh, we can do 10. Okay, that's great. 10. Who's it for? First name's Lisa. Okay, well, what does she need? Just a haircut for now. And the assistant had ums and pauses and things.
The thing that got me is the point the assistant, they said we have 10 a.m. and the assistant went, perfect. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, and there was another one that was even more complicated where they called a restaurant, and the back and forth was very sort of confusing, and the assistant handled it pretty well. But anyway, I'm assuming they pulled out of 1,000 tries, they pulled out the two that worked out pretty well. I'd like to see what actually happens, but
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's in the having dealt with voice recognition mail systems that are awful. I don't want to. That's me calling and it's annoying. So, but as long as it's done well and handles confusion and say, oh, never mind, I'll just call back later or something. That's fine.
So the Google Assistant actually becomes an assistant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which is kind of nice.
That is pretty cool. I had the keynote on in the background, and then I had a meeting, and I dipped in for a little bit. So I did see the part where they were talking about WaveNet and more natural voices.
Yeah.
Things
that was kind of different.
But I guess that led into being able to.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of other business and stuff that was pretty interesting. Some pretty cool stuff with maps coming up. The whole, you get out of the subway and your directions say walk north on Y. You're like, I don't know what's north. And they're like, well, we have a camera and street view, so go that way.
Yeah.
And they also suggested possibly having a little AR fox that you can follow down the road.
That's cool.
Just follow the fox around the corner and go. And that was kind of, I think that's the really nice stuff, because people use maps constantly for this sort of stuff. And they had this other thing of you're planning dinner with 6 other people, so you go to Google Maps and you find these 5 restaurants and you tap them and you can send them a link of these 5 restaurants and your friends can vote on them and then pick which one you want, whatever. I forgot to do those for cafes.
Very cool.
Yeah, there was a bunch of other stuff. Waymo had a nice little talk about their car stuff they're working on.
Cool. I have a few sessions selected that I want to
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. Again, and I think the stuff they're doing a lot of stuff in Android. I don't know, potato, whatever they're gonna call it. Poop emoji.
It's not a
I
dessert.
think that's actually the least likely.
Really?
Yeah.
Pile of poop.
Poop, it's not a candy and it's too long. Poop emoji. That's my theory. I was a guess.
Can we trim this from that? Anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the Android P that they're to reduce its impact, to reduce your usage of the phone, which is interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of nice. How to you're watching YouTube a lot, maybe pause if you want to see and set that sort of stuff up, right? Or it changes. There's a thing to set what they call it. There's some mode you can set for in the evenings. You can say I want to go to bed at 10. So leading up to 10, it'll start turning your phone grayscale. So it's less interesting to you to interact with, and so you're like, yeah, it's fine. I don't have to care about it. So things like that. It's a bunch of little sort of quality of life stuff.
Call your mom to it. You're up to it.
Yeah.
Call your mom.
Yeah.
You should go to bed.
Actually, Google Assistant. I wish my mom a happy Mother's Day. Okay. Perfect. We've got it solved. There's things like that, and it's interesting to see how these things actually work and when they're released in the wild and that sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I don't know. Some of the stuff that Google and Apple, everyone announced their stuff. It's like that's magic. I don't know how. The machine learning stuff that Google is just stunning. So.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So, questions from anyone on the Hangout? What are you dealing with? What's going on? What's happening? What's stymieing your world?
I guess I can start. So I'm currently at a new company.
Hey!
So I've been here for a month, and they have some cool infrastructure set up. They're using some nice CI, and it's GitLab, and it has a bunch of cool things built in. And I am now finally automating all of our Monkey and auto package stuff, whereas before it's always been kind of, here's some documentation, but it's still go whack it once a month if something breaks or your cache fills up the disk. So that's what I'm currently working on. So interesting problems, kind of.
That's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I like that that workflow automation stuff because we've been doing more of that internally as well. Because there's a bunch of tools, obviously, for the Google production side and stuff that we're finally starting to leverage, and that sort of stuff you can do externally with Travis to not just do code tests, but other run these tools and these steps, and then get the output. And if things are right, pass it on. And put things in the workflow. That's really nice.
I'm building a system that lets us build packages for Mac packages on Linux, which I'm leveraging Google Container Builder for it. So one of the things for our product is that we generate a unique package for each customer because we want to make the deployment of a query and the enrollment process very easy. So their customer, the API key that they use to enroll their hosts is built into the package. And we started off easily where there was just a few of those, so I was building them on my Mac and adding them to the GCS. But now, we've added a desktop app into this package. Now this package is 150 megs, and B, I got to build thousands of them because we have a lot of signups. And so me building them on my Mac and uploading them pretty much kills my internet connection for hours. And it's just it's not a good solution in general. And building a Mac host is not a good solution either. Google Container Builder, though, works really well. So I'm at a point where I can build hundreds of these packages in just a matter of seconds. And I'm just going through the signing process. But that's an exciting project for me. I'm hoping to open source it once it's done.
Awesome.
And it's for anybody who's not familiar with Container Builder, it's just like any other CI system, except it requires that you specify a container image for every step in your process. So like normally I would have like a CI host, and I would like say that this host has all these dependencies on it. Here, if I'm building Ruby or something, I'd have a Ruby container. And if my application also needs JavaScript, I'd have a Yarn container. And then if I'm deploying to Kubernetes, I'll have a third container that has kubectl with the credentials. So all of these steps are completely isolated. So I'm doing the same thing with, building packages on Linux as a part of like combining a few utilities. One to like archive the thing, like CPIO and everything. So all of these things are separate container images that can be independently debugged, and it's kind of cool. And
it's very cool.
I'm hoping it works out.
Yeah, I guess the only point where you get stuck and have to go back to a Mac is for code signing.
Well, that should work. So right. So the thing is, we built the binary and we code sign it, and it's a separate thing from like this. What this does is that the binary doesn't change. It's only the things we put in the etc folder that change, and like the launch daemon potentially.
Oh, okay.
But signing the package, you're gonna have to do some trickery, I bet.
The tool, the Linux tool supports it, so we don't really have to do trickery. And Container Builder supports encrypted arguments, so we can put an encrypted file. There's a KMS service that will like encrypt plain text for you, and you give this tool the ability to decrypt it, and it does that at build time.
So for like .pkg, is that what you're talking about? And signing that with?
Yeah, that works on Linux, but Pine actually has a demo of it. Yeah, there's a CLI tool for doing it. It's a bit convoluted, but it works.
Okay, I thought you were talking about code signing a binary that got built.
No, that's fine, but I can do that ahead of time.
Pretty janky.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, the code signing a binary is a little flaky at this point on Linux.
Yeah, Apple keeps changing the structure.
Yeah, and it's undocumented, and yeah. So, well, cool. That sounds like awesome work.
That is neat.
Yeah, we'll see how it translates to other things, but I know it's been a thing I wanted forever. Like,
yeah,
auto package and all these things run on a Mac, and it's unfortunate.
Right. Because kind of tying back into the discussion we had to begin all this with, it's like we're building all this infrastructure, but Apple doesn't help you on the infrastructure side. So usually you have all these Linux hosts and Linux boxes everywhere, and like, well, I want to run my workflow there and build packages and sign things and automate it all. So.
Right, without fleets of Mac Minis and data centers or stuff like that.
Yeah. Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys a while back at conferences, you were talking about possibly deprecating your use of Monkey. Is there something you guys can talk to on that project?
I can't.
I don't know that we have anything to say about it particularly. We are looking at building something new to replace Monkey. We haven't finished yet, and it may or may not get open source when we're done. So, but it is an ongoing project. And our main goal is for this project would be more performant because it's a lot of Python, and be more directly suitable to our environment, what we want to do.
That's a sucky answer, but that's all we got.
That's like, I don't know what else I can say about it.
Well,
Do you have specific questions? Maybe I could.
Well, so one of the things that one of the yaks I keep shaving is security, like communicating securely between the client and the server. So even like if you guys don't open source the tool, it'd be cool to have a discussion about how clients authenticate and like what are the things you're looking for. I ended up I'm working on something kind of related. I'm not trying to replace Monkey, but I'm working on a way to deliver payloads to individual Macs. So we're looking to like distribute O-square extensions, which are binary files, and I'm just putting them in a tar file and signing it with Docker Notary and having them be delivered, and then checking the signatures on the Macs and things like that. So there's an architecture there, but it's always been a problem that Monkey hasn't solved well. Like Monkey that goes out of its way to like install packages correctly, and that's why we all use it. But when it comes to securely communicating between device and server, and that whole workflow, is not the most. So
you do some work around a package signing architecture so that we could verify that the packages that Monkey was trying to install were signed by a key that we trusted. And not just the packages themselves, but all of the executable pathways. So all the 8 different, or whatever number it is, 8 different so they wouldn't execute any of them if any of the signatures didn't match a known and expected public-private key pair, to try to improve the security of being able to deliver what we want to deliver and nothing else to our clients.
Which allows you to not have to trust your data store as much.
Right. And that was our main goal, so not trust your data store. And I thought about trying to open source that code. I didn't know that if there was any interest in it, because it's not beautiful, but it works.
You still have to find the actual.
I think just the high-level concepts are very cool. Like I remember digging into Simian, and while I don't use it, Simian had this issue where you guys were using client certificates, but App Engine wouldn't actually, validate them. So there's this whole flow of sending the contents as a header and using OAuth, and that was a very cool solution that I ended up extracting for other uses, because it's a common problem that you have. Like a common problem that I have is devices. You want to authenticate devices, but you don't want to prompt the user for a certificate, and you have the same server serving both the UI and the endpoints for the agent. And so that flow works out nicely because your certificates are still being validated, but you're not using the TLS mechanism for it.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, even if you guys don't even if the solution doesn't apply, the high level concept ends up being very useful.
Yeah, I think open sourcing that might be worth it.
Oh, maybe I'll go back to that. I had it on my to-do list, and I crossed it off because I didn't know if it was worth the effort. But maybe I'll put it back on.
Yeah, but I feel like then
conceptually,
generally, the open source thing, and it's not a huge.
Yeah.
Just because, like God's Picture was saying, that was my point before. Was like maybe no one's going to use it as is, but someone will say that's a great sort of idea,
right?
And I'll do something like it, and I hadn't thought of that before. Yeah, that's probably good.
Theoretical white paper on it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way about our standalone open stuff. You want me to open source? I'm like, well, I can't. But that's even harder because our internal.
But you could describe.
I could describe it, and I have. It's like 6 sentences.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't know.
Maybe throw a diagram
in there. Right.
People like diagrams.
People like diagrams.
Yeah. Maybe a meme.
Because it's fine.
Okay.
It's a thing that makes tar balls and then uses GPG. It's not that much.
Okay.
It's not much.
I don't know anyone else who did it before that, so right on. Cool. Anybody got anything else? Questions? Announcements? Victor, I know you have QueryCon coming up.
Yep, that's going to be very shortly, and there's a big overlap between people going to YVR and people going to it. So.
Yeah. Well, because that gets them out to the same coast, right?
Yep.
Good. Well, congratulations on that. That's good news. I think a lot of people are really excited about that. I know Papine and some other people are headed out there. I don't know if anyone from here is going.
To YVR?
No, to QueryCon.
Right. I probably someone from Google, but not from our team.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I guess after QueryCon, we have YVR and Penn State, neither of which I'm getting to this year.
Yeah. I'm excited about missing Mike Devil's YVR.
Yeah, it's a good event.
Where's Chief is going.
That's right.
Oh, good. Is he speaking?
Yeah, it's talking about
Focus. Awesome. And then there's X-World and what would be...
You'll be speaking at X-World.
I'll be speaking. You'll be speaking. Good news. So see everybody in Sydney, right?
Yeah, come on.
That should be a good event. I'm excited to get there. Max Sysadmin seems far off in the distance. I'll be speaking there as well, which makes it seem that much closer because I have to put together a talk. Mac Tech, I guess. I think that usually rounds out the year, right? There's always one I forget, but
I think we got one.
those are the big community events that I know.
Another Canadian one?
Yeah, there's the the Mac Deploy.
Mac Deploy, and that's usually like a week
Yeah,
off
that's
of
just,
YVR.
that's just the same.
Champney?
No, you're right. You're right.
WWDC.
One meeting?
And WWDC.
WDC. Well,
That's what you want.
oh, you got
Are
a
you
ticket.
You're just gonna follow the kernel guys around and yell at them?
It's gonna poke at them and say, hey, get us out of the room.
Oh, good on you.
You
for
want us
getting a
out of the
ticket,
kernel?
'cause-
Get it out of the kernel.
Phil
That's-
and I both go. They gave us a lot of tickets this year.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, they didn't restrict it to 5.
As far as
All of Google. Yeah, apparently. They probably changed it at the last minute now that everyone's got tickets.
Interesting.
well, but it's in, that was something moving to San Jose, right?
I don't know. Was it?
I guess.
Make it suck here?
I don't know.
They better Vietnamese food.
Is it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Like San Jose is fantastic.
Vietnamese food? I haven't spent a lot of time in San Jose in those
Neither
20
have I,
years.
but it's not.
I saw Weird Al there last year, the year before last. That was good.
On your way to the store museum.
On my way, that's maybe.
Victor popped something in Slack. The IT Kit Roadshow in New York City, Wednesday, May 16th. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, one of my coworkers is on it, so he sent me the link. It's I guess it's a little panel on discussing IT. And I see that it's being sponsored by Slack and Fleetsmith. So
Oh, cool.
if you're interested in modern ways of managing Macs, like
There you go.
probably a good place to go.
Huh. That's nice. I will be in town, so maybe I'll try to poke my head in there. Maybe. All right, everybody. No other questions? No other announcements? I think we're good for this month.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining. See you.
Let's go, Jordan.